It shows you're muted, Dr. Y. There we go.
Morning.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good morning, good afternoon. um, yeah, what did you all do the last couple of Sundays after I left?
Jim, do you want to tell him what we watched in the video last week?
We were watching, I think, the part of the 13th video. There was some.
And what were the lines covered there?
Hold on, let me see. I'll tell you.
Yeah, so that we know where we are.
The four immeasurables. You had talked about the four immeasurables and how they prove that we are not real. You had talked about what not real means, and that it means something that is not permanent.
Okay.
And so then there was a question, a really good question about Tonglen. Can Tonglen actually bring happiness to people? And we said no. And yeah, so we had a good talk about that stuff. And you were emphasizing how we're doing all of this for our own minds. You know. But I don't know that you said a particular slogan. I think, is there a place where the four immeasurables are?
Not in not directly from the Lojong text. It might have come from there. I mean, you know, I'm sure it's at a certain point.
I think it might have been just the train in the preliminaries.
Oh, how did we go back to the beginning?
Well, you do that. You do that. You do, but that's okay. We like it. It bears reminding.
Yeah. So yes. So the thing about, you know, like we are training. You know, the main training, we're training our own minds. It's we're training our own minds, and here's the part that I think we need to get clear from the Buddha's, you know, standpoint, from what the Buddha taught. Removing mental defilements for your own mind. And removing mental defilements, like all the way, right, to the state of Buddha, where all mental defilements, all afflictive emotions are purified, is the best thing you can do for others. Yeah, that's the best thing you can do for others. And now, you may or may not accept that that's the best thing you can do for others. So you may have some kind of Christian or secular ideas about, you know, the best thing that you can do for others. But within the context of what the Buddha taught that the best thing that you can do for others is to completely remove your mental defilements collective emotions, because to whatever degree that you're able to do that, it will uncover.
I can't.
It will uncover and develop and bring out Buddha qualities that can benefit others. And even in that benefiting others, those Buddha qualities, it's not really, in the form of, like, say, Christian charity necessarily. It doesn't exclude, but it's not primarily in the form of, orphanages to meet all the needs, food banks to meet all the needs. It's not like primarily in that area. Sure, people need to be able to eat. As a realistic point, people need to be able to eat before people would even think about mental defilements. But even, like Buddha's main way of benefiting beings is to lead them to them being inspired and committed to removing the mental defilements. So that's a really, I think, crucial point for us to appreciate. Are you able to hear, or maybe not?
There's some kind of feedback.
Yeah, it seems to be dropping in and out a little bit.
We're having technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why.
Cheryl, maybe if you muted your mic when you're not using it. I think that might help. It keeps picking up from Dr. Lai and then switching to you when there's noise in the center. And now I can't hear you at all because you are muted. Okay.
Reset your view to speaker view so that Dr. Lai's image is on the screen.
Yeah, I have it on speaker view, but when there's a sound, the speaker view goes where there's sound, and when there's a sound in the center, it switches to the center.
Okay, I'm muting us. Okay.
Okay.
So is this any better? Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumb sideways? Okay.
It's better.
Yes. So back to that point, like, so that's that I think, we need to appreciate, because then, if you're measuring this idea of benefiting others according to a different measuring system, it will never kind of live up to, that different measuring system, so to say, and then you will feel like, I'm not really benefiting others.
You responded to a question in the video from the audience.
Sorry?
Where you responded to a question from the audience on the video.
Mm-hmm.
Basically what you're saying right now, and you also, as I recall, mentioned karma.
Mm-hmm.
That was a factor that we needed to respect.
Yes.
And that really caught my attention because I haven't heard a lot about karma in the Buddhist circles.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was very interesting, and perhaps you would like to say something more about that, or if not, that obviously that's fine too.
Karmic causality is everything. I would even argue that that's the basis of everything the Buddha taught, is karmic causality. Meaning, everything operates based on the principle of causality, karmic causality. So first thing the Buddha said about karma. So in the Buddha's own time, various spiritual groups, communities, they all use this word karma. But how they nuance, how they understand what karma is, there were significant difference from group to group to group. So today, most people's understanding of karma, it's a salad bar of all these ideas, and plus some other ideas. And so it's kind of so we have to, pay closer attention to how the Buddha saw what karma was and taught us what karma is. Actually, everything is karmic causality. So even something as basic as the Four Noble Truths. So if you look at the Four Noble Truths, what is it? The Noble Truth of suffering, the Noble Truth of cause of suffering, right? What's that? That's cause and effect. The Noble Truth of suffering is effect, is result. Where do these results come from? The cause of suffering. Next two Noble Truths, the Noble Truth of the cessation of suffering and the path to the cessation of suffering. What is the path in relation to the result? The path is the cause. The cessation of suffering is the result. So then the whole Four Noble Truths is the cause and result of both happiness and suffering. Now here, cause and result, it's the general definition of karma. I think today, even in popular culture, when you use the word karma, you more or less got that one, cause and effect. By cause and effect here, it's not really talking about like the causal relationship between an object dropping and an object breaking. That's what? That's not the karmic causality that the Buddha is concerned about. That's called the causality of gravity. That's not karmic causality. It becomes karmic causality when I deliberately drop something that I know somebody cares a lot about. Because I want to hurt them, I did it. One kind of karmic causality. Because I want to free them from their fixation, attachment on that object and point them in the right direction, that is a different set of karmic causality. So there, it brings in the Buddha's further definition of what karma is. Karma is intention. Intentionality is the main determinant, the determinant factor to the quality of our actions. This is in contrast to another spiritual tradition that existed in the Buddha's time that continues to exist today. Of course, just like Buddhism, they have developed, evolved, fine-tuned the way they talk about karma and all of that. But their basic position on karma is quite different from the Buddhists. Their basic position on karma is any and all actions. Any and all actions are binding. Binding what? Binding the soul to this material world. And the problem is that when this soul is bound to this material world, then it will continue to be bound from lifetime to lifetime, and therefore basically stuck in the prison of materiality. So then in that spiritual tradition, one is to overcome all actions. Practically, how do you do that? First, minimize all actions. And the ultimate minimizing of actions is when the signs of death are quite clear to you, you even stop eating or drinking. Because even such a basic act as eating and drinking further creates karmic results that will trap you in this material body. These are called the jains. they exist today. A small religious community in India. Of course, they have also gone to other parts of the world, but they generally are not like Buddhism. And Buddhism very early spread out to all across Asia. Then, various different cultures adopted Buddhism. Jainism, that did not happen for Jainism. The founder of Jainism was a senior contemporary of who we call the Buddha. No evidence that they met, but clear evidence that these two spiritual communities often intersected. Various stories of Buddhist monks or nuns living close by to Jain monks or nuns. So that Jain view, then any and all actions, doesn't matter intention or no intention, they all trap you. Now, obviously, at a certain point in the development of this Jain or the Jain tradition, they have to account for meritorious actions, actions that are good, that are conducive to a good life. So they develop ways of talking about that in a way that doesn't compromise their ultimate, you could say, disdain for karma. But as a religious community, as it grew, as it developed, right? You surely want to encourage your followers to engage in good deeds on the relative realm. So they develop a language, they develop a way to talk about that without compromising their ultimate standpoint, which is karma is the force that traps you, and you do everything you can to get rid of that trap. So some of the early Jain ascetics even went to the extent of not eating anything. Of course, there were vegetarians and vegans, but not just that. Some of them went to the extent of only eating leaves or vegetation that has fallen on the ground by themselves. To pick even a lettuce is karma. So there were some very extreme versions of that. Yeah. Yes, Mick, if you can unmute and.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is a little bit in the weeds in terms of karma, but from the Buddha's point of view. And obviously, karma depends on your intention. But most of us are confused, and our intentions don't always, we don't know what will happen. We have the best intentions, but if we are operating from a confused view or whatever, where does that put us karmically?
So that's the problem. That's the problem. Yeah.
Point, or is it just?
So we have to keep developing, refining our intentions and refining our ability to discern our intentions. So then the overtly obvious mental defilements, we keep working on denying them, as in don't feed them, then ultimately to uproot them. Yeah, so the solution is not to walk around, what are my intentions? What are my intentions? Yeah, not that. The solution that the Buddha gave is remove that might poison your intentions. And ultimately, those intentions are Buddha intention. Here, Buddha nature teachings come in. In early Buddhism, not so explicitly, they don't use the vocabulary of Buddha nature. But when Buddha nature teachings among the Mahayana tradition became, publicly kind of discussed, it makes good sense. It actually clarifies why the Buddha says you remove mental defilements, because mental defilements don't belong. So some people, non-Buddhists in Buddha's time and immediately following the Buddha's time, kind of challenge the Buddhists and say, if you just remove mental defilements, is there anything? Like, isn't it kind of negative spirituality? You're just concerned about to remove the negativities? And the Buddha and the early Buddhist community, I think, did not like explicitly answer that question. But later, when Buddha nature teachings began to, surface, so to say, and became more publicly taught, we could see that, that's the logic, that's the reason, because you could say the Buddha understood that you just need to remove the adventitious mental defilements. When those things get out of the way, naturally, innately, our intentions are altruistic. Now, of course, you don't need to wait until you can feel your intentions are altruistic to be altruistic. So that is the Vajrayana secret mantra method of what we call faking it until you make it. But we are faking it until we make it, not because we are fake, but because we are. We are Buddhists. So, but proverbially, we could say you're faking it until you make it. So you also should not have this attitude of like, well, I'm not going to be altruistic until I'm Buddha. So we apply what we call contrived methods to be altruistic meanwhile. Yeah, so back to karma, right? There were another group of another tradition during Buddha's time where they had a more limited range that they assigned to actions that they call karma. And for that group, karma primarily refers to ritual actions. What kind of ritual actions? Ritual actions prescribed, ritual actions given by the Vedas. So modern Hindus descend from this tradition. Maybe my Buddhist kind of prejudice would say, it's a mistake to say, oh, Buddha's time there was Hinduism. No, Buddha's time, whatever the ancestors of what we now know as Hinduism. Yeah? So, I mean, maybe not prejudice, I would say scholars are in agreement. That's the Vedic tradition. So the Vedic tradition back then, now Hindus have a broader range for what karma entails. That's why I need to say it's in the Vedic tradition that existed in the Buddha's time. The word karma refers to ritual action. Now, to them, ritual action is what keeps order in place. Basic order established by the Creator in the Vedas, he has various names, or it has various names, sometimes called Purusha, sometimes called Prajapati. So Purusha or Prajapati brought order out of chaos. And how did Prajapati bring order out of chaos? Through ritual action, through proper prescribed ritual action, as you could say, a primordial cosmic template for how beings, and in particular human beings, can participate in this re-establishment and maintenance of this delicate order. Yeah, so what Prajapati created in primordial time is an order that is fragile. It's a good order, but the problem with that order is it's fragile. So then it requires that human beings participate in keeping this order in place through ritual action. And ritual action is dependent on which class you belong to. And the Brahmin priestly class, or the warrior class, or the farmers, producers, or trades, or outside of the system. Everybody, depending on your class, what normally is translated as caste, but it's not really, in English at least, caste is related to occupational. Despite the title priestly class, not everyone functions as a priest. So the Brahmin, we call the priestly. The point here is that every one of these is part of a piece of a universal order. And if you are born in that and you don't fulfill your class duties, so they what word did they use for duties? Dharma. So the word dharma has different meaning in Hinduism. Dharma primarily means duty, obligations. So they talk about class dharma. The dharma that is dictated by your duties, that is dictated by what class you are born into. That is your karma. Failing to perform that karma will cause chaos to ensue. Buddha rejected that notion of karma, just as he rejected the Jain notion of karma. So Buddha had his own teachings on karma based on his realization, we say, of how things are. So cause and effect, In the end, right, when we say we practice Buddha Dharma, we practice Buddhism because we want happiness, we don't want suffering. What is that? You want happiness? Figure out the causes of happiness. You don't want suffering? Figure out what are the causes of suffering. Create those causes that you want, the corresponding results. Stay away from those causes in which you don't want their corresponding results. Everything is cause and effect. Karma in a nutshell. And then on the practical level, right? Buddha prescribe the 10 virtues for us to engage in. Buddha proscribed the 10 non-virtues for us to avoid. So that's the direct, the most seemingly, simple or maybe even pedestrian. But if we are able to live according to the 10 virtues and live without engaging in the 10 non-virtues, that is it, Yes.
I have a question about the when you were talking about there's an obligation because you were born in a certain
Yeah,
class.
that's the Vedic system, yeah, not Buddhist. I'm
Well,
describing.
I know it, I know,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
don't really get what's wrong with that. I mean, I don't.
Like the Buddha's objection to that?
Yes.
Yeah, he says that's not how karma works.
Oh, you're just talking about cause and effect versus this.
No, I'm talking about other people's understanding of karma, which the Buddha rejected. Yeah, the Vedic understanding of karma is the actions that you create in relation to your place in society. You were born to parents who are servants, you serve. By being a good servant,
Oh, okay.
no
Okay.
matter how cruel your employer or master,
Oh, okay.
you serve. And when
Oh,
you do that, the universe is all in order. Yay.
okay.
See now why the Buddha goes, ah, no.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not how things work, the Buddha says.
Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah. So
Great
Buddha,
discussion of,
yes. Mhm.
I really like that discussion of karma. I've never heard it actually discussed from the Buddhist perspective before. Have you done this before, or is this your first time discussing this in this
Many,
way?
many, many times.
That's a good one.
Many, many times. And then if you look around on the Urban Dharma North Carolina podcast, which is just sound files, and even maybe on YouTube, Jagung Dharma Kirti, my different places where you can find, there's a whole series, 6 classes on karma, a whole series that I did a while back, kind of going through those ancient systems that the Buddha, that the Buddha's kind of context, how these different groups, their philosophies, their ideas, their teachings about what is the problem, what is the solution. Looking at those 6 systems, and by looking at those 6 systems that are not Buddhist, we gain a clearer understanding of what the Buddha taught in relation to what these other 6 systems were teaching. So there's a series called Karma. Yeah, if you search, probably you'll find it. Google it, Hanlai Karma, and see, maybe just links to bad karma or something.
Steve, I think I remember last week you said yourself that these ideas get presented to us and we don't get them, we don't get them, we don't get them, and then one day we just get them. Something, and I guarantee you've been exposed to karma, but it sort of didn't resonate until you're hearing it today. And it's a good thing to follow up when those kind of like when it goes, when it pops open in your head like that, to do what he's suggesting and follow impulse, right?
different things kind of gel together at different times for different people.
Yeah, I think that's good for you to hear from the students, which is
Yeah.
us. I know you probably said so many things so many times, but some of us get it at certain times, some of us don't till later times. So it's still good to hear it again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Maybe then that's why class 13 I went back to four immeasurables. To not be so linear with the yeah,
That's
so
actually a good example.
yeah. So then this karma, right? So at the heart of it, right? I say to people, I said the take-home lesson is this. I feel, right? Before you get like too deep into like all the intricacies of karma, and then you look at the stories and the many more and more complex discussion of karma. I said before all of that, let's think about what's the take-home lesson here, right? The most important, first we work on the take-home lesson. The take-home lesson is actions matter, and actions matter, and what makes actions matter? intention. And yeah, and mix question about intention. That's also part of it, right? Understanding it's intentions. But how do we handle the intention part? Not walking around, what is my intention? Yeah, I mean, within reason, you do that, like, should I say this or not? Wait, am I saying this because, I'm retaliating against what I feel to be unfair, unfair characterization of me? Or am I saying this because I care about this person? For the most part, it's the first case and not the second case, at least for me. So then don't say. Just shut up. Like, don't say, right? So within reason, we check intentions like that. And at the very least, we can see how rare it is that our intention passes even our limited notions of altruism. So at the very least, we can see that. Then that should motivate us to, we need to be more vigilant about, that our actions are altruistically motivated, right? But then back to the thing about karma, it's making skillful choices, avoiding unskillful choices. Skillful choices are choices that bring about happiness. How do we know that? Buddha taught. Because in this day and time, its actions are seemingly not so easy, Oh, if I do this, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? What are the repercussions of all and this and that, So if you don't have any reference points, you just say, I want to go do that which is good. Then it's really very hard these days, It seems like even no reference point, like everything you do, someone has something to say about why it has a negative effect or negative impact. At least for me, I would say, before I listen to any of you, I'm going to go back to what the Buddha prescribed. So that's why we say in this training where what we're trying to gain is wisdom, right? So wisdom is such a big word. Fundamentally, what we mean by wisdom is see clearly. So in this task of seeing clearly, to work on seeing clearly, our heart seeing clearly, our mind seeing clearly, until we are Buddhas where it's all clear, then the Buddha says, there's the clarity that arises from learning, studying. Then on that basis, there's a different kind of clarity that arises when we think about what we have studied, considered what we have learned, contemplate, think through. And contemplation, not like contemplation and thinking through. So I want to use both words, contemplation and thinking through, because it's not thinking through for the sake of thinking through, which I think a lot of academic pursuits is based on that. Why? Right? There is a goal here to the thinking through and the contemplating. It's to arrive at certainty with regards to what we have learned, what we have studied. So yes, it's not free inquiry for the sake of free inquiry. As much as I think the values represented by the Enlightenment period of European history have things that are in sync with the Buddhist way of looking at things, but it's not the same, you know. It's not intellectual reasoning for the sake of intellectual reasoning. Even intellectual reason here has a specific goal in mind, is to arrive at certainty with regards to the Dharma that we have learned and studied. Then with this certainty, we can implement, which is the third part, often translated as meditation, but it's really, as Zhongzai Khyentse Rinpoche say, it's implementation. Now you implement, whether implement on the mental, emotional level, on the verbal level, on the physical level, you implement. And by implementing, it becomes even more clear and more clear and more clear. So the goal here, right, is to become clear, to see clearly, which of course I think we all recognize. Oh, that's the Buddhist thing. But it's not in a vacuum, you know. It's in the context of.
But implement can be action.
Yes, yes.
And so that's why the all actions trap you isn't necessarily true.
Yes, yeah, the Buddha does not accept that.
Right. But I mean,
it's
that's
about
why.
making the right choices
Right.
and, you know, refraining the wrong choices. Yeah, so Buddha's main point, yes. Thank you for bringing it back to, I got lost in my footnotes. It's about making choices, because making choices bring about results. So that's like the take-home lesson. And even when, you know, when things are happening already, we feel either we feel like we are now a victim, or now we are a victor. Even in those moments, depending on how you want to handle it, it can turn into one or the other. Yeah? From a victor, you can fall into a victim position. From a victim, you can fall into a victor position.
Yeah, excellent.
You know?
Exactly, because I mean, I had that happen to me last week, and I had to make my decision.
Right.
And you know, it was you know, it was a really tough decision, but it was important to me, you know, to do the right thing.
Yes.
And you know, a ton of stuff comes up. You know, do I
Oh, yes.
trust? Do I do this? Do I do
Oh, yes.
that? You know,
Oh, yes.
yeah. The outcome was really good.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And you know, yeah, and we all know, right? Outcomes, sometimes you think, you know, I'm doing the right thing, and the outcome is not what you really want, you know? So that's when the certainty of trusting in karma, you know, and you can say, well, this is just like Christians and they're trusting God. Well, maybe, you know, but for me, right, when we say trusting karma, it doesn't mean, you know, sit there and wait for things to happen. It means, you know, I make a decision, I take a course of action, and then whatever unfolds, right, I have that trust, like, you know, this is all in accordance to causality. Now, if it didn't turn out the way that I thought it would turn out, it has something to do with my not seeing as clear, and not because karma has been perverted. Saying, no, karma cannot be perverted. We might think that we have outsmarted karma, but no. But also karma, right? It's not fixed. That's the other thing. So there were some other right? Discussions of karma that Buddha also rejected. Similarly, like seemingly very similar to what he taught. In fact, among some of his disciples, emerged this understanding that once you have created an action, no matter what, you are stuck with the result. So you could say they took the Buddha's teachings about karma and the importance of karma, and then they kind of, you could say, solidified it and fixated on it. And so then their understanding of karma becomes a very inflexible, rigid. Yeah? And what is the problem that is inflexible or rigid? Not because inflexible and rigid, I don't like it, and therefore it's a problem. That's not where the problem is. The problem of the inflexible and rigidity is because that's not how karma works either. Karma works in a way that, you could say, is based on the lack of inherent existence. Even karma lacks inherent existence, meaning dependently arising. And when it's dependently arising, then change is always possible. Karma can be changed. So there's one short exchange between the Buddha and the disciple. So apparently this one disciple, he said, the Lord taught that karma is intention. The Lord taught that karma is never wrong. And therefore, whatever actions we have created due to whatever intentions, the results of those actions will surely ripen exactly the way that they will ripen. And it doesn't matter what you try to do later. Once it has been created, that's it, right? You see, why would the Buddha reject that? So Buddha said, wrong view. Because that view makes meaningful action pointless. Right? If your understanding of karma is all just on whatever I've done in the past, it's going to ripen now or in the future. Nothing I do now or in the future is going to change anything that has been done in the past. The Buddha again rejected that. So the Buddha called this disciple and said, is it true that you taught this, that you believe this? Then the disciple was actually at first quite proud and said, yes, Lord, isn't this what you taught us? The Buddha says, oh, no. He said, don't say that. Don't say that. You are mistaken. He says, your view of karma renders the spiritual pursuit, the spiritual life. In his context, it says, our choice to be monks and nuns renders that meaningless, he says. Your view of karma renders spirituality, pursuing the Dharma, pointless. Because what was created in the past, nothing you can do about it anymore. So then why even bother? So the Buddha says, let me give you an analogy. And so this is these analogies and stories that Buddha used, I think they're really good because they are pre-doctrine. All right, later Buddhists have to develop doctrines, meaning line them all up and make them all cohere and hang together. Of course, that also created a very sophisticated system that some of us are really, impressed by and really like, You can read all these treatises, right? That kind of very well organized, they all hang together. But pre-doctrine, Buddha taught to help us overcome suffering in a very direct way. So Buddha, in explaining, right, about this wrong view, he says, let me ask you this. He says, here I have a cup. Here I have a tablespoon of salt. If I put this salt in this cup and dissolve the salt, would this water be drinkable? So the disciple said, oh no, Lord, it will be too salty. It'd be hard to drink. The Buddha says, okay. Now here is the same tablespoon of salt. And now I put this tablespoon of salt into a reservoir. Is the water in the reservoir drinkable or not? The disciple said, oh Lord, of course it's drinkable. And the Buddha says, this is an untrained mind. That spoonful of salt is past karma ripening in an untrained mind. Then it's like water in this cup. Same negative karma ripening in a trained mind is like that same scoop of salt now inside a reservoir. It's there, but barely experienced as such. You see, this analogy, right, really gets to the heart of, do you want to stay with an untrained mind and have to deal with that scoop of salt? Or a trained mind, heart, and that same scoop of salt? Yes, Mick.
No, there you go.
Hello. Years ago when I was trying to make a version of karma that makes sense to me, and you can tell me where I'm wrong or if this makes sense, but that karma is more about, and it goes to intention. Whether you're trying to solidify your sense of self and duality kind of thing. We can say, well, it's ego building or whatever, but it's a way of, if it's building ground under me or it's not. It's like, in other words, if you're doing something really altruistically, you're just like saying, this is of no benefit to me spiritually or whatever. It's just doing because that's the nature of your own action.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, that's where karma, and so in a way, by extension too, if somebody who suffers from an action by you, that's their own karma as well, how they react to that, because things do befall people all the time.
We
Usually,
provide
lightning or just somebody runs a car into you, you have your own set of conditions that
Yes, we provide the conditions for others' karma. And important thing is that when the Buddha talks about karma, he divides them into skillful and unskillful. So it's not just karma, right? It's the other guys who say karma is just doesn't matter, skillful, unskillful, all that is beside the point. Karma is karma, right? The Buddha always says, choose skillful karmas. Steer clear of unskillful karmas. I would even say that the Buddha will say, a sense of self that is built on the basis of skillful karmas, not a problem. That's a healthy sense of self. It's when your sense of self is built on the basis of unskillful karma, or to whatever degree your sense of self involves unskillful karma, that will be detrimental to you. Yeah. Altruism is like the next level. So we say then on the basis of individual, okay, now going back to being Buddhist geeks, there's the individual liberation vow, then there is the bodhisattva vow, right? So the bodhisattva vow is kind of like the next step, where altruism becomes the driving force. But even without directly talking about altruism, the Buddha first says, first, right now, your messed up sense of self is the cause of all your problems.
Mhm.
Now, let's work on building a healthy sense of self based on generosity, based on disciplined conduct. These two, especially. The first two of the 6 paramitas. Generosity, in the end, is not how often you part with your goods. Generosity is this fertile soil of your heart that allows you to cultivate disciplined conduct. Because if disciplined conduct occurs on barren land, that turns into moralism,
Yeah.
self-righteousness,
Right.
very harsh, unforgiving kind of disciplined conduct. So disciplined conduct are these virtuous seeds that we have to plant in the field of generosity. Generous to others, generous to ourselves. Otherwise, we can be so harsh and unhappy. Yes.
Let me see if so what I was thinking too is, when we get to the ultimate, we're the ones that created that mirror anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another way to look at it. And, I think, well, I don't know. I mean, I understand what Mick was saying, but the deal is to keep the focus on ourselves and not really worry about how somebody else built their own karma.
Mm-hmm.
And to just, keep my side of the street clean.
Yeah, exactly. Start there,
Yeah.
Thoughts? Questions?
I so often feel I've studied Buddhism for many years, and I just so often find that I don't understand this very fundamental thing I've been hearing for decades. And the importance of kind of monitoring and house cleaning the kind of thinking I'm doing.
Yes.
I don't think I've understood how to apply it until I've had some recent kind of just kind of understandings at night, as I've realized when I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking negative political stuff, that
Yeah.
it's harming me. It's not helping anything, and it's not helping me.
Uh-huh.
And I have a choice. I don't have to hang out there.
Yes.
And sometimes especially at night, it's hard to control the mind. It's harder. And I find that, just simply doing a practice is helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Trying to think about that go through the four immeasurables in my mind,
Yes.
because I can't, it's hard to think kindly of whoever I'm upset with. But there's a when I can, there's such a relief.
Oh, yes.
There was this interview last week in the New York Times with I forget his last name, this French monk, the happiest man on earth.
Oh, Mathieu Ricard.
Yeah. And he was saying that one of the things he does is imagine when he gets upset with Trump, he imagines Trump doing kind things like helping people in a hospital.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I liked that.
Yes. Yeah, like so much of this morning at the Sang practice, the smoke offering cleansing. I said, ultimately, what we're cleansing is cleansing our filters, and our filters, and also our projector. We all have we not only have a filter, right, to filter what we receive. We also have a projector. So it's cleansing the projector, is cleansing the filter. Yeah. So in the end, right, I said, donkeys are donkeys, elephants are elephants, But our label of donkey and elephants, can we see how subjective and how fundamentally unreliable those labels are? At the end of the day, the donkey is just the donkey, and the elephant is just the elephant. And most of the time, we're not dealing with either the donkey or the elephant. It's our perception and labels of donkeys and elephants that we can fine tune. And maybe you don't have to be so, enlightened, right? And you say, oh, they're all. This is in the discussion of like gods and demons, the traditional duality. Especially in the Chi tradition, they talk about gods and demons. Yeah? And I said, like, so what gods and demons mean in our times, like now, like many of us, right? I think gods and demons in the ancient context is these are two concepts, two ideas that immediately, right, bring out very strong feelings. So today, it's our labels of liberal and conservative, our donkeys, our elephants. So there we need to see, Buddha says, gods and demons are all designated by our labels. We are the ones labeling these two things, labeling what we experience as either gods or demons. Helpful, harmful, like, don't like, more, less. So that's where we need to purify. That's there we need to clean. And I was saying, you don't need to throw them out and say, oh, they're all the same. No. I'm not saying that that you have to do that. But what I am saying to myself, to you, everyone, is like, whenever these labels of gods and demons and whatever our contemporary equivalent turns up in our life, turns up in our live feed, turns up in that's when we say, hold on. Hold on. Don't jump into conclusion yet. Don't judge habitually the way we judge. And we don't do that not because we want to be morally good, I mean, you could kind of like live your life like that, but I said, no need. Pay attention to, first of all, how heavy the quality of that reaction is. So now you don't even need to subject analysis with regards to the object of your like or dislike. You just pay attention to how heavy or light, is this feeling that I'm having now in relation to this donkey or this elephant. And ask yourself, how much weight do I want to carry around? And then go from there, I'm also not saying throw everything out so there's no weight. It's just pause and say, how much weight am I willing to carry now for whatever reasons? And those reasons could be altruistic, and hence bodhisattvas can do difficult things. Bodhisattvas can do difficult things not because they are idiots and they have not considered how heavy the weight is, but because they say, it's worth it, this weight, and I will carry it. Then it's not idiot compassion. It is idiot compassion when I cannot carry it, I have no capacity to carry it, but because of my image, for myself, I need to carry it. Then the trouble with that is you weigh everyone else down that is around you. They didn't make that choice. Your need to be a hero is now a burden on people around you. Drop as much as you need to drop, carry as much as your great vow, makes it possible for you to carry. Can we stop the recording? I want to give an example that nothing scandalous.